Hello there, and welcome to the Charleston Leadership Interviews. My name is Meg White. I am delighted to be joined today by Violeta Ilik, Dean of Libraries at Adelphi University. Violeta, thank you so much for joining us today, taking time from your busy schedule, and welcome to the Charleston Leadership Interviews.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this invitation.
Our pleasure, and looking forward to getting to know you a bit better today. So, just to start us off, I'd like to talk about how you got here. You're in your beautiful office today, but your path to leadership in academic libraries is not necessarily a traditional one that we might see. Can you share a little bit about your background and how you came to be at Adelphi?
Absolutely. You're right. My path to academic library leadership hasn't been a traditional one. I'm a chemical engineer by training, who ended up in the United States in the late 90s. I spent time learning English the first couple of years and then enrolled in the Master of Management Studies at Dawn University in Nebraska, where I used to live at the time. Our family moved to Texas soon after I graduated, and I looked for jobs at Texas A&M University, where my spouse had a tenure track position, and I was unable to get any interviews at the beginning. I reached out to the Dual Career Center at Texas A&M, and they tried their best to assist, but unfortunately, they ended up giving me advice that boiled down to me needing to join a church to gain access to network of people that will be able to help me. As you can imagine, I left that office determined to focus on finding a job without following that advice, because I always strive to draw positive things from wherever and whatever the experience is. And that is just part of my character and my approach to life. Eventually, I got an entry-level job at Texas A&M University Libraries, where the Dean of Libraries at the time was Dr. Colleen Cook. She's now Dean of McGill University Libraries in Canada. She advised me to enroll in a Master in Library and Information Science. I also was able to get a scholarship, the McLemore Scholarship from Texas A&M University Libraries, to pursue those studies. So it was really a great, actually, a series of fortunate events, let's put it that way. So there was a period of time, probably around 2.5 years, where I worked full-time, went to school full-time, and took care of 2 children. Once I completed my degree, it took a year to get the professional librarian job at the same library as in the cataloging department. As you can see, up to that point, I worked from an entry-level job that the requirements were only high school diploma, from library assistant 1 to library assistant 3, and then eventually to a librarian position on a tenure track. I was and still am very intrigued by the semantic web and knowledge graph technology. And at that time, when I got my tenure track job, I started experimenting and playing with various software tools to demonstrate that we can create those name authority files that catalogers so love to talk about using these new tools. We eventually ended up actually implementing and adapting my research project at Texas A&M University by using that platform that I experimented with. That platform is called Vivo. It's an open source. It's a semantic web platform for researcher information systems. And I think that kind of put me somewhere on the map, so to speak, not just in the library world, but also in the world of scientists and researchers that work with this tool, because the Vivo Semantic Web Platform was started as an NIH grant-funded project led by professors in medicine, in all sorts, like nothing related to libraries, basically, so to speak. So I also at the same time kind of got involved with the Force 11 community through a dear friend I met through the Vivo community. That's Dr. Melissa Handel. At the time, she was at Oregon Health Sciences University. I owe her a lot of for my interest in these technologies and ontology development tools, because to this day I'm very involved in with the semantic web and knowledge graph community, being in the organizing team of the Knowledge Graph Conference for a few years now. I just want to point out that I am involved with the library communities and organizations. I'm a member of ALA, American Library Association, Medical Library Association, NASIC, Force 11, all sorts. But I'm also very involved with the communities that the libraries eventually end up working very closely. And I think that's very important, because being involved just with the library associations is like looking to a mirror. You are not always being really aware of what are the needs of the research community that the librarians are actually serving. So that's why I like to be involved with the communities that are, encompassing not just librarians, but more broader academic research industry even, because Knowledge Graph Conference is mostly industry and academia working on these important topics, tools, technologies that serve to better our lives.
Well, it's interesting too, and there's so many themes I'd like to follow up on as we go through the conversation that you just hit on. But that last one, I just have to point out for our audience, you started out by saying that you are a researcher. So, and then via this circuitous path, it comes back to the fact you can have a lot of understanding and empathy for that community and what their needs are, simply because you've lived it. You have been in those shoes. So it's always interesting in our professional paths how we seem to think, sometimes these experiences disparate and they're unique. But they always seem to find a way to resurface themselves and help inform our perspective and how we approach whatever challenge is out there. So, so please continue. You've spent some time in Northwestern professionally and more recently at Adelphi. So please continue.
So after that actually job, I just want to finish saying that
Sure.
I owe so much to, like I already mentioned, Dr. Melissa Handel, to Dr. Michael Conlon, who was the principal investigator on the Vivo project. I also owe a lot to Professor Dr. Pedros Kelly, who was the creator of that Karma data integration tool, which actually he's now moved into a new role as a principal scientist at Amazon. So this is, again, scientists that work in applied science actually end up moving and leaving academia. This is like an effect of this pandemic, I guess, I don't know. But I'm very happy for him, and he has helped me a lot in understanding how to use tools to better to better the life on the campus community. And I guess that's how I ended up at Northwestern, because through that community, I realized through those two communities, Vivo and Force 11, I realized that I can do much more than being a cataloging librarian or semantic web technologies librarian. So I stepped into bigger shoes, and as head of digital systems and collection services at Northwestern Medical Library, Galter Health Sciences Library and Learning Center, how it's now called, where I was actually in charge of so much, basically all of the, not just the web presence, but also all of our back technical infrastructure, including the launching of institutional repository, including the launching of the digital science symplectic elements tool, and so much more that we've done over there. And of course, migration from one integrated library system to another. Yes.
That's small matter.
So it's been I think I dip my toes in so many aspects of the librarian roles that in a very short amount of time, I gain understanding and knowledge. Of course, in some areas, I'm not still the expert. I'm relying on faculty and other librarians who are better suited to assist and lead some of these projects. But I am appreciative of that opportunity I had to learn so much from just being thrown into these roles that demanded a lot. Same happened at Columbia University Libraries, where I ended up leading the digital collections and digital preservations team, where we work with an immense amount of digital assets that we digitize them, preserve them, and put them up online, available to researchers around the globe. I'm talking about, as you can imagine, these kind of libraries like Columbia University, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, they have vast collections, special collections, and archival material that is sitting somewhere in boxes. So this needed to be out there and made available. So I'm so appreciative of that experience I had at Columbia, because that's where I learned how to deal with amount of data, amount of work, and how to manage and project manage and manage people and deliver on time results that are actually visible and available to everybody now in the whole world. So yes.
And I'd like to come back to that topic as well, because dig into that. But I think it's fascinating, over your career, and certainly your comments about you were always positive and you tried to learn and move forward. I think that's an important message, but also the importance of mentorship. I mean, you certainly took advantage of opportunities, but you along the way mentioned any number of mentors who made it possible for you to learn and to grow. Can you talk about, how are you paying that forward? This is a little bit off of some of the topics we discussed, but I think it's so critically important to think about how, given the challenges, certainly in scholarship, sort of writ large, librarians and libraries being a big part of that. What do you see as the role to sort of bring along that next generation of academic library leadership and scholarly information leadership?
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you for steering a little bit away from the questions that we had. Yes, mentorship has always been very important. I have to say that I'm very appreciative of the fact that while I was at Texas A&M University, as a faculty member, I became member of the Women Faculty Network. And within that Women Faculty Network, we had a mentorship program. And there was a tool how to express interest if you want to be a mentee or a mentor. And I was paired with a professor from a vet school. And also I had two mentors from the library, tenured professors who serve as my mentors as assistant professors starting in this new role. So I can explain how important that was for me and for my growth and for having mentors from the library and also from another branch that was a veterinary school professor who's now moved out from Texas A&M actually at the same summer I left for Northwestern, but understanding that now throughout my life, I have managed, as soon as I stepped into the role at Galter Health Sciences Library at Northwestern, I took it upon myself to mentor and provide growth opportunities for the people that reported to me to make them expand their horizons. So to be not really have that tunnel vision and those strict specific job duties, but under other responsibilities, look for ways how you can grow and what interests you outside of your job responsibilities that you can see that eventually at one point in your life, in your career, you're gonna be able to deliver on that. So I'm very glad to tell that I'm still in touch with some of those people that reported to me at Northwestern that have took some of my advices how to learn and grow. And upon arriving here at Adelphi University, because now I'm in a senior leadership position at this university, I'm able to influence and instill and put the programs in place like Faculty Mentoring Academy, together with the associate provost for I forgot what exactly is the title, but with Dr. Ann Mungai, we put the Faculty Mentoring Academy together. We drew a lot from the Texas A&M mentoring program, and we are designing that. So we are in the process, first year has passed. So that's how I think paying it forward, what you're saying,
Right.
installing and instilling these programs and establishing them, and then looking into ways how you do assessment and evaluation of these programs to constantly be better. What doesn't work, then you make it better. And so I think that's just one way how I like to pay it forward.
It's so critically important. And I think just about everyone can look back, even to their years as a student, that one teacher that made a difference, or that one professionally, that one colleague, or that one boss. It can just be transformational. So that's amazing that, now that you realize the power of that, you've actually taken steps to make that part of the culture at Adelphi. And I don't know, we didn't say specifically, but I should tell folks listening, you took over at Adelphi as Dean of Libraries in the summer of 20. So, a huge transition for any organization to have new leadership, but especially challenging given the fact that there were no students, there was no faculty, virtual students, virtual faculty, virtual staff, and virtual library services. So can you talk a little bit about that time and maybe some of the challenges and opportunities that came out of that sort of, I'm going to call it trial by fire kind of transition. So if you could share a little bit about what that experience was like.
Absolutely. I have to admit that taking on a new role that summer in New York, I lived in Manhattan in New York City, complete lockdown. And I signed the offer 2 weeks actually before the lockdown, when we still didn't know if what's actually happening. We were hearing in the news and all of that. So there was no kind of a go, oh, I'm scared, there is no way back. That's how I took it. So it's like everything in my life, I take an opportunity and turn it into a positive experience. So I decided to proceed with this. And I have to admit it was very challenging because it's not easy. During the first year, I focused learning more about the library, the policies, procedures, the people. It was difficult to make connection and form a close relationship with someone that you haven't met in person ever before. But we somehow did it. I have to admit that probably not everyone was happy that, all of this was happening virtually. We were not in person for a while, actually. But I took the time to prepare that strategic plan that the university was on a path for a momentum plan. So we had to revise the goals, the strategic directions for the library, took the time to formulate the vision and mission and set the ground for passing an open access resolution in just 9 months on the job, lobbying with the faculty senate, with the teaching faculty. This is a unionized campus, I have to say. So working all the details on that, working through faculty senate committees, working with the president office, with the provost office, with all of the associate provosts to help make to help pass this open access resolution. Both me and the provost put together an open access task force to deliver on this charge that we gave them. We also, with the provost at the time, Dr. Steve Everett, who is now vice president and provost at CUNY Graduate Center, we established a lecture series called Critical Knowledge Forum that served and still serves as a place where we bring challenging topics for discussion presented by leading researchers in the respective field. So this lecture series highlighted how working across sectors, disciplines, geographies help us identify needs and develop solutions to effectively support the knowledge production and the knowledge dissemination. With this series, we try to see if we can explore engaging, how we can change actually the culture of higher education, embrace new opportunities to engage diverse communities in the knowledge making, as well as global knowledge sharing in accessible and expedited ways. So I really hoped at that time, and I still hope, that the vision I bring will inspire the hearts and minds of our campus community, and that my comprehension of the importance of discovery and innovation will serve Adelphi University well as we face the challenges of today's world. I also work very hard with the Provost Office and the Libraries Academic Affairs Committee to revise the very antiquated library bylaws and operating procedures that over time deviated greatly from the overall university governance documents and the collective bargaining agreement. So as you can imagine, this was actually very challenging to do, but we passed new bylaws and operating procedures in the same month as we passed the open access resolution. So those are my first year, 9 months actually.
Well, but it's so interesting because you mentioned a lot of operational, I'll call them tactical, or the to-do list, right? You kind of marched down it in terms of priorities, but you had such a strong emphasis on the communication and the cultural side of that. And I think maybe sometimes that's the thing that maybe is not given enough attention, the component, and perhaps why some like initiatives where, you can get people to do the tasks you need them to do, but to actually change the culture requires specific attention and leadership, to be honest. So you closed with, you're trying to bring together folks around the campus because we're really talking about cultural change in as much as, how people do their jobs every day. It's how they think about their jobs and how they think about their position in the community that becomes, a really important factor in success of some of these initiatives and change. So, and these transformations, I should say. Yeah. So that is so interesting. And congratulations to you and your staff and your colleagues. You've had a very productive first couple of years on the job. So we're coming up on time, but I'd love to talk to you a little bit about your speaking at Charleston on the psychology of metrics. And you're looking at metrics from a somewhat unconventional perspective. Not the first, when we think about metrics, we think about quantitative data. Can you give us some context around your topic and why should we be paying attention?
I shouldn't give away too much.
No, that's great. Absolutely. We can.
But what I'm going to say is that we are overloaded with information about metrics, about impact factors, H indexes, university rankings, etc. We should stop and think about how all of this came to be. Where is the drive for this coming from? And if you stop and think about it, you realize that we as humans like to put things in order, since it helps us contextualize things, and with that comes all sorts of utilities that make us swim in the reputational economy. Everybody wants to be measured. I publish in a journal with this journal impact factor. It's not necessary to go down that road. There is positives and there is negatives of metrics, of course, but I would like to say that a bottom line for me is that as the DORA, San Francisco DORA Declaration states, do not use journal-based metrics such as journal impact factor as a surrogate measure of the quality of individual research articles to assess an individual scientist's contributions or in hiring, promotion, or funding decisions. This is this is what we all should do, basically, because, and I like to point out that some movement has been happening, especially in European universities. I want to maybe single out the Netherlands, because I had an invitation to review a grant for the Netherlands, coming from the Netherlands government. And over there was very specific wording saying, do not mention journal impact factor, do not mention any metrics and university rankings, nothing. Basically evaluate the proposal on the merit of the, of the quality of the proposal. Do not look, for anything else. It's so amazing that and also here we have humane metrics. That's another project, that's a grant-funded project. I know a few of the co-PIs, a former colleague of mine, Dr. Nikki Agati, who we worked together at Columbia University. She's now at UPenn. She's one of the co-PIs on that project, where they're talking about humane metrics. Even the word is telling you,
Right.
look a little bit beyond these invented metrics that if you follow those topics, you will see that, like, for example, Springer Nature we're going to bump out the journal impact factor for some of our journals to be able to increase the article processing charge in those. When you, as a researcher, submit an article to be published open access immediately if you pay that APC. How is that? That's a manipulative, that's not a real economy that makes sense. This is already manipulation.
Mhm.
And I think I'm interviewing basically the CEO of Digital Science, Dr. Daniel Hook, during this session. So I'm gonna challenge him with some, of course, not just negatives, but we're gonna look into some positives of metrics, because at the end of the day, like I said in the beginning, we as humans really like to, put things in order and measure and rank.
Well, and I mean, we're talking with an audience, there's many librarians. I don't know, librarians like things nice, needy, tidy, categorized, organized, for sure. So I think that's going to resonate, but it comes back to culture too. What you're really talking about is, we have been trained to look at the impact factor as a key, that stands for quality, and questioning that is perhaps a little bit non-traditional, but perhaps it's a timely question.
Yes,
given the
absolutely.
changes, if this landscape truly is undergoing the transformation that we understand it to be. So,
and I do want to mention that at our lecture series, Critical Knowledge Forum, we had a researcher from Germany, Dr. Jelena Brankovic, present to us on university rankings. We had Dr. Bianca Kramer from the Netherlands present to us on DORA assessment and all of that from the perspective from Netherlands. So we are trying, by bringing this kind of people talking to us, to the whole community, Adelphi community. We are basically trying to change, and FYI, the Faculty Senate has a group that's working into revising the ways they evaluate faculty for tenure, promotion, reappointment. So this is very important, that in this position, I can now influence senior leadership as well as the faculty to bring upon a change that's probably overdue, because we can't just focus on, look at this researcher came from R1 institution. This researcher is from R3 institution. They're not, good enough. No, that's not what it is. It has to be a deeper look into what makes a researcher, what makes a scholar, and how do we evaluate everything they do in their life. Even while I was at Northwestern, the institutional repository, we literally focused, that was the mission, on traditional and non-traditional scholarly outputs. It was, incredible. And we're gonna do the same here. And we are doing it actually with our institutional repository. So encompassing everything that makes a researcher exist in this space.
Well, and again, your background as a researcher, I think, is informing a lot of this, but also your leadership, because the library is well positioned to be at that table. In fact,
Yes,
pivotal
we'd like to
in
say
many
that,
of those
right?
activities, right? So anyway, Violeta, thank you so much for joining us today. We are at time, but I certainly have learned a lot, and what a career you've had, and more to come. So thanks so much for taking the time for the interview today. Thanks so much for participating in the Charleston conference, and we look forward to your session, The Psychology of Metrics, next week as part of the conference.
Yes.
Great
Thank you
day.
so much.
Audience,
Yes.
thanks for tuning in. And this has been the Charleston Leadership Interviews. We wish you a wonderful day.